All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you will have the opportunity enjoying some of that sunshine today. It looks like our beautiful, warm August weather is taking a bit of a turn. So seize the day today. Thank you all for being here on a different day and at a different time. I really do appreciate your flexibility. I will be recording the meeting today. So for those who are not able to be with us, they will be able to have that information. And we're going to go ahead and just get started with our land acknowledgement. We would like to open this convening by recognizing that we are on the unceded ancestral land of the Coast Salish peoples, the traditional home of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. We cannot work to fulfill our mission and our vision of an anti-racist present if we don't first acknowledge and recognize the true history and cost of colonization. However, acknowledgement is only a first step, and we urge you to engage in accountable relationships and informed actions. So I have a few announcements. Just as a network, of course, we're always looking to uplift all the voices and activities that further our shared priority to increase Black homeownership. So please be sure to send updates and info for the digests that are good for the whole. Also, please be sure to sign up for the weekly BHI Network Policy Digests and encourage others to do so as well. We really want to continue to grow this network and our impact, and it's going to take all of us doing everything we can to reach our shared goal. As I said, I will be recording this meeting for those who are not here, and that link will be going out inside the digest, so please do sign up. Today, we're going to hear from Zoshil Majkovic of the King County Housing and Community Development Division about the King County budget process that is happening, as well as, what that means for affordable homeownership. After we hear from Zoshil, we will hear from Rhonda Lewis, the Chief of Staff for King County Council Member Zahalai. She will be giving us the council members' perspective on that King County budget, as well as the comprehensive plan that they are finishing up, and the possibility of a King County Equitable Development Initiative. There was a presentation set to one of the committees on the Equitable Development Initiative. A lot of that excitement from the Seattle initiative, but King counties will be distinctive. So it'll be interesting to see how that moves forward and what the perspective is from Councilmember Zahalai's office. We'll also ask, if possible, that Rhonda touch on that reparative action study report that we heard about in June. Now, that study report has been transmitted. It's gone to council, but it has yet to be kind of addressed by the council or kind of published on the site there. So, I shared the PowerPoint that we received in June, but we'll just, see if there are any thoughts on that. And lastly, we'll hear about the excitement around the Brooks Village development that has been in progress with the Skyway Coalition, the Community Land Conservancy, and our own BHA partner, Homestead Community Land Trust. So excited to hear about that kind of groundbreaking work that's happening. And then Gregory Davis of our BHI core team is going to remind us that there are many ways to contribute to the BHI shared priority. They'll lay out kind of the different teams that make up the BHI effort. You're here, of course, today as part of the policy group, but you may also find yourself drawn to contribute additionally in other ways. And it does, again, take us all working together as a network to make that change. So just wanting to remind you of those possibilities as well. And as an example of that, today we will have the BHI Sustaining Existing Homeowners team here to share with us. They're going to share their process and their priorities and the work they've been doing. They are a mighty team. I think they're between 30 and 40 members now, and they've been having some very exciting agendas. And much of their work is beginning to bubble up to policy action stage. So they're going to appreciate your input about what they are doing, and happy to share with us where they are. And then lastly, we will have time to hear from you about any news for the good of the group. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And then it looks like you have entered the room here, Xochitl. I'm going to go ahead and make you a co-host in case you have anything you want to share visually. But please welcome again, Xochitl Mikovich, and she is the Interim Deputy Director at King County Housing and Community Development Division. And Xochitl, up to you.
Hi. All right. Hi, my name is Sochi Makovich, and I'm the Interim Deputy Director of the King County Housing Community and Housing and Community Development Division within the Department of Community and Human Services. And so I'm going to just give a quick overview of the King County budget process, and then just talk a little bit about some affordable home ownership information. And so I will be looking at the clock, and hopefully I have timed this PowerPoint well. We'll see. All right, so let me from the beginning. Okay. All right. So, okay. So the county budget process. This is just kind of a quick overview of DCHS, the 2023-2024 budget. The vast majority of our funding comes from local funds, and then we get a portion from state funds and a portion from federal funds. And as you can see, when you look at the second chart, the local funds, it has like the vets levy, Best Starts for Kids, health through housing. The mid is it's a behavioral health levy. I'm blanking on the actual in the acronym names. And other local fund sources like the document recording fee. One of the things that is a I guess a difficult thing to navigate is that each of these local fund sources that are levies have implementation plans. So when we get to the budget making process, we have to make sure that what we're allocating aligns with an existing implementation plan. I think the other sort of unfortunate reality that we have to deal with is that we are in a state where some of our, for the Housing Community Development Division, we're at a moment in time where some of our most flexible funds are going down, or some of our funds that we rely on using for, oh shoot, I forgot to, well, that's fine, that we rely on for like operations, like the document recording fee, have gone down significantly. The document recording fee is a fee on every sort of real estate transaction. And so when we're in an environment with really high interest rates, people are buying less property, they're refinancing less and things like that. So that means that fund source goes down. And so, with that in mind, one of our sort of guiding principles as we're working on the budget process is really focusing on maintaining the existing services, making sure that we can like meet the actual cost of services, trying to raise people's wages. But there's a tension with that, meaning that we will have less ability to create new programs or to fund many new organizations. And so that's a challenge right now that we have. So I'm gonna skip that. Okay. So this is our general process. They start the budget process they started it in November 2023. So really figuring out what money do we have to work with, and figuring out what are the costs that we're anticipating, with like admin and things like that. And then DCHS submitted a draft budget to the exec's office in around July. And right now the exec's office is going through the budget, evaluating requests and things like that. And then in late September, I believe it's going to be September 24th. That's what I was last told. The exec will transmit the draft budget to council. And then pretty much the rest of the year, council will go through the budget, make changes and ask questions, things like that. And then they will approve the budget in late November, early December. And so that's kind of the general process right now. And so be looking out for the exec's proposal in late September, early October. So that's like the quick overview of what the process is. And so I can stop there for a second before I move into talking about the affordable home ownership. Any questions or anything?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Since we're in that process in which you're kind of have done your submittal and the executive is considering the submittal as well as their own priorities, can you tell us a little bit about the possibility of advocacy opportunities at this moment? Or is it pretty much, we wait till the executive brings their budget out and then it's through the council process that we'll be able to kind of affect the change?
I mean, I think people can reach out to, the executive whenever. I don't really, I guess I really don't know how to answer that because I think that just depends on like what your strategy is. I guess I'm just not really sure what the advocacy to the exec's office exactly looks like. So, but I know that people reach out to the exec all the time for requests and things like that. And so, um, it's probably happening. I just might not know about it. So that would be my short response. All right. Any other questions? All right. Okay. So affordable home ownership. All right. So, the Housing Community Development Division, we have capital funding that we put out every year. And this includes it essentially is loans to organizations to construct, acquire, or rehab rental or home ownership affordable housing. We also provide some limited down payment assistance to individuals through some of our contracts with CBOs. And we also have a housing repair program in which we do loans or grants on repairing homes and whatnot. Um, and so it's important to know that it takes years. I think for a lot of folks, I know many folks on this call are familiar with capital projects and have worked on them. So you know that it is not an immediate process as much as we wish it could be. I think it's also important to state that the county, generally, we represent 10 to 20% of any project's funding. And so these projects have to compile, funds from many different entities. So, State Housing Trust Fund, private equity, local funds, and then we're there at the 10 to 20% range. So it's definitely a very difficult thing to get these projects off the ground. All right. And then also just generally speaking, this is like a quick overview of, how the financing piece goes is we do an RFP, which we're doing an RFP right now. And then we have to do a bunch of financial analysis, make sure that the project's going to work. And then we we do all the complicated real estate transaction documents that I can't speak intelligently to. They happen though. And then we start the construction. So usually it can take, 3 to 4 years after an award for a project to be completed or to start, I guess, construction and whatnot. All right. So then on affordable home ownership investments over the last 5 years. So over the last 5 years, we've invested 19 million into home ownership projects. So that includes some down payment assistance. 19 million is 13% of the total funding awarded. So the majority of that funding for home ownership went to 80% AMI home ownership units. Generally, on average, we fund 2 to 3 homeownership projects a year. Generally, there's been 271 total homeownership units that have been funded over the past 5 years. And so there's some challenges that exist with homeownership project funding. So, one of the biggest is scale. Generally, it is much easier and cheaper to build larger units, right? And so larger projects with many units. And so when you can do that, that means you can serve lower income households. In Washington, there have, the past couple decades, and I think this is starting to change due to some legislative changes, but there were challenges with constructing condos because of some lawsuit risks. So developers had some heightened lawsuit risk due to some some stuff in the state statute. So people stopped constructing condos because of that. I mean, one of the reasons. And so a lot of the homeownership projects that were funded in the past couple decades were townhomes, but townhomes, you know, it's only a couple on a lot. Like when you compare to a condo that might have 80 units, townhomes are, you have less on one in one project. And so generally, in order to make that pencil, it needs to be higher AMI units, right? So that's one of the things that we have seen. Now, that's not going to be true across the entire board, right? I know that there's some organizations that have figured out ways to make townhomes go towards lower AMIs, but this is just based off of the what our housing finance project team has seen. So the majority of what the county has funded in home ownership have been 80% AMI households. We don't have a designated fund source solely for homeownership projects. Some of the fund sources vary on like what can go towards it, and a lot of it just as far as like when we're deciding to fund homeownership, it really depends on if the projects come in. Because I think in 2021 I'm trying to remember if it was 2021 or 2020. I don't think we had any homeownership application. And so, yeah, so that's kind of the basics there. And then we have heard from organizations that the annual 1% interest on TOD funds that the county charged was a hindrance to organizations. And so for the 2023-2024 TOD bonds, we removed that requirement, and we're trying to do that for future TOD bonds as well to try to make it easier for organizations to use this money for not just home ownership, but for rental projects as well. And then I also have some just King County homeowner data if useful. I wasn't sure if I'd have time to get into this or not, but I just wanted to put it on the slides and I can email it to folks and you could see some pretty graphs. So I'll stop there, answer any quick questions, and then I can just kind of show some data points if helpful. Oh, Kathleen.
Hi, Sochi. Thanks for being here. I'm struggling a little bit with some of the things that you said because they don't align with my understanding of the market at all. The characterization that we can't build townhomes, that they're 4 on a lot, all of this is really old data and an old perspective on homeownership. I think we are attempting to scale our projects. We've got a proposed development in Skyway that would be 55 units. That is density. The notion that LIHTC is used in homeownership is not accurate. So
I don't think, I don't know if, I don't think I said light tech was used in homeownership, but if I did, I'm sorry. I think what I was trying to get at was that it is the home ownership or townhomes are more expensive generally. This is historically, not like, it's not going to be true in every single situation. They are more expensive to build than condos are.
Relatively speaking, but the difference is not that significant anymore. Um, so I just, there haven't been a lot of condominium developments in King County that are affordable, because the King County funding doesn't support a project at that scale. We have historically been allowed to build projects at about up to 18 homes because King County will cap them. So guess, you're not going to stack up a bunch of condo projects if we know that the money isn't there for them at the county level. What is true is we have to have at least two major sources. One is the state housing trust fund, and then we need some type of local source like King County funds, or in the city of Seattle, we can use city of Seattle levy funds, but we have to have at least $200,000 of subsidy per home, to build, and King County just hasn't stepped up with that level of funding historically, and it becomes this chicken and egg thing. If you don't have the funding, people aren't going to apply, and if there's not enough funding, they're not going to be able to apply for what they want to do anyway. So then there's been a dampening of enthusiasm for building in South King County, primarily because, which is the area of greatest need, because there aren't funding sources at the scale to develop condominium projects or larger projects, as you were indicating. So it just feels odd to me in terms of a characterization of where we are, in general. So
Just wanted to jump in for the city of Seattle. So I'd be happy to continue the conversation with you and Kathleen in a different forum and share some of our kind of like budgets that we've funded for recent townhome projects, if that's a helpful data point that we could share in a different conversation.
Yeah, and I guess like the thing I was trying to get at is, and perhaps I did not do that eloquently, is that the home ownership units that we fund are higher AMI, generally speaking, than the rental units that we fund, because it is more difficult to make home ownership projects pencil with lower
but that's
AMI.
What might be causing the pushback that you're hearing, Soshi, is that you frame that as a negative thing, as a part to a housing continuum where there's all different kinds of solutions, and home ownership is one of those solutions.
Exactly.
Oh,
We think of rental housing that in the continuum, we think of rental housing as serving up to 60% AMI, and we think of home ownership as a good solution for 50 to 80% AMI because it leverages the homeowner's ability to pay a significant amount of the cost through their mortgage. So it's not so we don't choose to do home ownership for below 30% AMI. It is the right solution for folks who have ability to pay. So that is why we have historically said we are intentionally serving 50 to 80% AMI. And I also just want to be careful. We're not pricing homes right up at 80%. Some of our homes are priced at 60% AMI. And I know Habitat historically has been able to get lower. So I agree with Joy's comment that that it's not a negative that we serve 50 to 80. It is, homeownership is the right solution for that income category.
yeah. And I apologize if that's how I frame that. I think, and again, probably I did not communicate this well. This is a common question that we get asked. So I guess I was just trying to preempt a question of why is it that a lot of the homeownership units that you guys have funded have been at 80% AMI? We just get asked that a lot. And so it's trying to potentially preempt that, because that is different than if you look at what we fund rental housing wise. It is lower. And so it's not,
Intentionally,
um,
right?
yes, because we are able to do that. And
Right?
it's, yep. And I mean, different housing models work for different entities. So, or different income brackets. So yeah, it wasn't like it was more of me just stating a piece of information. I wasn't weighing in on, I wasn't intending to weigh on like positive or negative.
Well, I think, sorry, I just want to say one more thing. It doesn't matter whether it's a positive or negative. I mean, or that's one aspect of it. It's just plain wrong that we don't build home ownership for lower incomes because we can't. We build the home ownership and it's funded for the 50 to 80% AMI category because that's the right solution for that income band. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, I was speaking specifically about what the projects that the King County has funded. And this is me just my understanding, and I can talk with the team and, get a better understanding too.
So I'm going to go ahead and just jump in here. Sochi, we are close to the end of the time period here, but is there something in the King County homeowner data that you'd like to highlight quickly?
I mean, I think it's not very surprising that the smaller the household, more likely to rent, that kind of thing. The younger the population or the household, the more likely they are to rent. White and Asian households are, and this is specifically based on the head of household piece, are more likely to own countywide than other races. People who are not Hispanic or Latino are more likely to own, and higher income, more likely to own. So that's kind of the basics of that. Yeah.
All right. Well,
That's what I
thank you
got.
so much for joining us today. I am going to unfortunately need to move forward with our next guest because we're just a little bit over time. But, Sochi, I hope that we can get a copy of your slideshow so that we can distribute that. And if you, feel like you want to make any edits or anything, just let us know. And follow-up questions can come to you as well.
Sure. And one thing real quick, because Rhonda had I know this was on Rhonda's list, but I can just speak to super briefly, is that the second phase of the implementation plan for the Equitable Development Initiative is going to be transmitted by the executive to council this week. So just that's the EDI update. So taking that off Rhonda's list.
Thanks for that. And we know that they had the panel discussion in the tree committee. So it's good to understand that it's been transmitted. So we'll be able to see that coming forward in the documents then.
I had a question really quickly. I know we're over time. This is Anita. I was wondering, is there anything in the county budget and some of the materials you were sharing, especially equitable development, is there anything in there for direct impact to homeowners that want to develop?
As far as for like developing
Existing properties, particularly with the equitable development funds, was there any mention of resourcing homeowners that want to develop their own properties?
So the budget has not been finalized from the executive's perspective, so I can't really speak to the specifics of it yet until September, late September.
So is there an opportunity to influence an ask or something like that in the process right now?
I think the best entity to work out, because right now it's with the exec's office. And so that would be the entity. It's out of DCHS's hands right now. So that would be the entity to reach out to.
Perfect.
And thanks for that question, Anita. It's a really interesting opportunity at King County for EDI to maybe have that residential aspect having to do with legacy homeowners redeveloping their property, which is not currently something that Seattle Equitable Development Initiative is doing. So I like how you're thinking, and we'll get on it. All right.
All right.
So thank you so much, Sochi, for joining us. And now we have Rhonda Lewis, the Chief of Staff from King County Councilmember Gurmai Zahalai's office, District Number 2. And thank you so much for joining us today, Rhonda. Take it away.
All right, thank you for having me. I am so pleased to be here and to see some familiar faces in the group. Gosh, there's so much to talk about with regard to the budget. I'm going to start with some basics, and I don't have slides. I thought we could make this more conversational to make sure that that my comments are tailored to the things that you want to know. So typically, King County has a biennial budget, a 2-year budget. For 2025, we are only passing a 1-year budget, and the reason for that is that the budget cycle coincides with the election cycle. So we have budget in off election years. Because the county has gone to an even year only election cycle, we had to do a 1-year budget to kind of catch up and get on that same, get on the 2-year schedule again. So we're doing a 1-year budget. Councilmember Zahalai, as Sochi said, is the budget chair this year. You may have heard that the King County budget is in trouble. I think we should clarify that by saying the general fund budget is in trouble. General fund is the source of revenue for pretty much the criminal legal system. So jails, sheriff, court, prosecutor, those things are funded from the general fund. Most other programs have a funding source. And so the executive will be looking at how can he make some efficiencies in the general fund as he transmits that budget. As Sochi said, I'm looking at the budget schedule now. The exec is looking to transmit his budget to the council on September 24th. The council is expecting to pass that budget by November 26th at the latest. So what happens in between that time is a series of budget and finance committee meetings, a series of panels where council members consider a particular topic. This year, our panels are going to be broken down by, we'll have public transit, climate, local services, and infrastructure as one panel. Public safety will be one panel, and health, housing, and human services will be another panel. So what these panels do is they review and discuss the departmental budgets for the areas that fit under their topics. So they discuss those, they make a recommendation to the Budget and Fiscal Management Committee, and then the Budget and Fiscal Management Committee takes it from there. There will be opportunity for public comment at all of these sessions. And in addition, there will be 3 town hall meetings to discuss the entire budget. Those town hall meetings are currently being scheduled, but they will all happen in the month of October. In terms of location, they will be at, there'll be one at Kent City Hall, there'll be one at Bellevue City Hall, and then the last one will be at the New Holly Community Center Gathering Hall. So trying to hit all parts of the county, and we're still looking for a place in unincorporated King County, so that would be forthcoming as maybe a fourth town hall or a substitute for one of these that we have planned right now. The question was asked about advocacy, and the opportunities for advocacy are kind of twofold. One, as Sochi said, contacting the exec, because at this point, the departments have all submitted their budgets, their proposed budgets to the executive. The executive will then go through and prioritize and decide what portions of those department budgets will come to the council. So once he's transmitted it to the council, it's out of the executive's hands, and then your advocacy would be with the council. Some constituents send their advocacy letters, comments, and things only to the council member that represents their district. Others send comments to the entire council or to the Budget and Fiscal Management Committee. My recommendation would be to send it to Council Member Zahalai with CCs to the rest of the council, just so that they're kept in the loop and know who we're getting advocated by and what those interests are. So I think I'll stop there and see what specific questions I can answer about the budget process. And I'm looking for hands. Kathleen.
Thanks, Rhonda. Thanks for the great overview. Am I correct in understanding that most of the funding for home ownership is going to be coming from the bond funding? And so it isn't necessarily as impacted by the general fund budget?
That is correct.
Okay,
That
thanks.
is correct. Other questions? Ruby. You're on mute, Ruby.
Hello, Rhonda. Do you know if tax assessor Wilson will be pursuing a homestead exemption anytime soon? I know that's not a budget question, but somebody really wanted to know.
You know, I don't know if he will do that. He will be presenting in front of the budget committee on September 25th. And so if you want to tune in to his presentations, and otherwise I can just ask if that's on his radar to do that. And then I can let Bambi know she can get that answer out to this group. Does that work?
That works. Thank you.
Okay. Any other hands? Okay, if not, and we can always come back if you think of a question later. I want to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan and comprehensive plan revamp that's going on right now. And a lot of the action that took place over the last couple of months of the comp plan was hearing from developers. In fact, the council had a panel discussion on July 17th. And if you can go back and look at that, the video of if you look at the video of that, it's the Local Services and Land Use Committee. They had a panel discussion that included developers, and the topic was, how can we build more inclusionary housing in King County? And that is both housing for home ownership, but it's also housing for rental as well. What we know is, or I think we know this, is that the King County Code is in dire need of being updated. Some of the, there's a zoning portion part of the comprehensive plan that we're told is just not reality in today's market. It's not housing friendly. And so the council and the local services committee is trying to change that. So they've had one panel already. If there is interest, they would consider having another panel. In terms of timeline, right now, because of the budget, most committees are going to be kind of phasing down. We have what's called budget stand down, and that happens after the budget is transmitted. And what that means is no committees meet from the time the budget is transmitted until the time it's adopted, unless it's some real dire emergency. So the local services committee is scheduled to resume work on the comp plan by hosting a public hearing on October 14th. So public hearing, I'm sorry, they're sending out a public hearing notice on October 14th. The public hearings will be held in November. So I could send that schedule to Bambi as well, if that would be helpful. Just be on the lookout for that. And the one area that's really, it's really active right now is housing. How do we get more housing? And we're balancing what will work for the entire county. So urban unincorporated county like Skyway and White Center is different than, you know, Fall City, Carnation, those portions of the county. And so we're trying to revamp the zoning code so that it works everywhere. And so that we can have not just housing, but provide for services that will be available to the people who live in that housing. So local commercial services like, you know, barbershops, grocery stores, things that dry cleaners, things that people need just for their, you know, everyday living. And if we are expecting folks to, you know, use public transit or to drive less, they have to be able to do the tasks and the errands that are critical to everyday life somewhere near them. So I think, yeah, I think that's all I could say about the comp plan right now. It's in abeyance until about November, when it'll start up again as the budget considerations are winding down. But again, I can send that schedule to Bambi and she can disseminate it to you. I want to touch on the reparative action study. So on June 5th, the county executive transmitted to the county council a letter that kind of took some data from a study that was done by the wastewater treatment division when they were looking at how do we make the what's called capacity charge, sewer capacity charge, more equitable. And what's happening is that as new developments come online, single family developments or home ownership developments, some areas are being hit with large capacity charges because let's say the property was vacant for 2 years or more, and then someone comes in and builds. And so the idea is that the capacity charge helps to keep the sewer system to pay for growth and allow it to be able to handle that growth. What the study showed is that home ownership opportunities have been unattainable for certain communities. And so the question was, okay, here's what we know. What are we going to do about it? How will we address it? So in the letter that the exec sent to the council, he talked about a couple of things. One is legislative action, and he talks about both at the state level and the federal level, and so including reparative actions in our state and local legislative agenda. So what that means is our lobbyists will have a menu of items from our county council, things that are important that we want to see change in the state legislature and in Congress. So it could be things like, the removing the 1% cap or expanding property tax exemption programs. So state and federal legislative agenda is one kind of set of actions that the executive refers to. The other thing he says is that at the time of the writing of this letter, he was unable to include analysis of individual proposals. And so he mentions that the departments are developing their 2025 budget. So the expectation from this letter is that there will be something in the 2025 budget that will address the findings of the study. Again, back to advocacy. If there are, things that you are really, really interested in, it's not too early to get those things on council radar and on budget committee radar now. If the reparative actions study is something that you want to see the council address, send them a letter to say so. So yeah, I would say it's not too early. I mean, certainly the executive can be a point for advocacy and the council as well. What we're doing in support of Councilmember Zahalai is that we are keeping a spreadsheet of all of the requests that are coming in, and we are getting requests now. So what we will do then is see what the executive transmits, what revenues are available, and then how can we balance the asks that have been made with the revenue that's available. What questions do you have?
Well, just in terms of the reparative action study report, we had a preview with the author in June, and so have an idea of what is in there. And basically, in the end, they did some case study analysis of different things happening across the nation and had some, kind of amorphous suggestions. But in essence, this is a study that was initiated by a council member who left at the end of last year, right? And so the question just whether or not there is an idea moving forward for a champion for any type of legislation moving forward that would be directly addressing reparative action. May not be some of the things in the study report itself, because again, it was a little bit broad. But understanding that unless there is a council member champion or someone who has legislation in mind, it's pretty much going to be what it was, which was a nice passage at the end of someone's career, but isn't truly going to create any change. And so just wondering if there's anything happening there. We certainly as a group have many ideas, but just don't know what the climate is around championship, because we have heard, different things from different people about budget and priorities. I did go to the panels for the King County EDI, and although everyone was very supportive, in the end, they all said, we have no idea how we're going to fund this. So it's a bit of a give and take there in expectation. And we were wondering if Councilmember Zahalai has any intentions or ideas in partnership around something referring to the reparative actions.
That's a great question, Bambi. It's not something that we've talked about in our office. One of the reasons is that because of the committees that Councilmember Zahalai is on, he's no longer on the committee where this kind of discussion would take place in advance of being referred to the council. So the chair of the Housing and Human Services Committee this year is Councilmember Jorge Barón. But I will make a note about a champion for the reparative action, the actions that come from the study, for taking actions on that. And so I will look through some of the minutes from the HHS committee meetings to see if they've discussed that at all. If they haven't, can talk to Councilmember Barone's office and find out what is the plan with HHS moving forward, and then see how Councilmember Zahalai wants to handle that. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, we understand that it's kind of in a formation. And so we would like to be in communication, but we're just interested if there was interest in it, right? Because it would be very easy for it to just let it run its course, be what it is. The report is the end of it. But we think that there's a real opportunity there to be thinking about innovation. And I see that Cliff's hand is up. Cliff, did you want a question?
Absolutely. First of all, good morning.
Morning.
I am so sorry if this is if either of these are dumb or repetitive questions, but I just they just came to mind. So I guess the first one is a couple of years ago, before I was at Commerce, myself, Bambi, Kathleen, you guys might remember working on this. It was a letter specifically to council about creating a dedicated home ownership fund and having that fund focus specifically on King County to address the racial home ownership gap we see. I remember having a meeting with you and Councilmember Zalahai, and it was a really, first of all, thank you for that. It was a very productive meeting. And, you know, we were able to move the needle a bit, but the funding kind of actually got, you know, wound up in some other funding that didn't really go towards home ownership. So I say all that to ask, during in some of the discussions that you've had recently, have you guys like kind of revisited that idea? And then the kind of second question that goes along with that is, I totally under budget, like right now, everyone is like not forecasting a pleasant budget conversation. But have you guys like talked about or started to maybe think about some progressive revenue or some like other revenue ideas that can support some of these reparative ideas or like affordable home ownership or something like that? So
Okay, so question number one, has that conversation resumed or been ongoing? I have not heard it, Cliff. So that's, again, would fall under Councilmember Barone's leadership. And again, I can find out about that. Part two of your question, progressive revenue opportunities. King County doesn't have a lot of opportunities for producing revenue. We have sales tax and we have property tax, and property tax is capped. So you have seen the county go to the voters for, you know, the mental illness and drug dependency tax. You've seen them go to the voters for crisis care centers tax. There's only so much appetite for more taxes, sales tax or property tax. So I think the council, not I think, I know that the council is committed to home ownership. We just have to work on how we help folks pay for that, how we make that happen. And any creative ideas, any ideas are welcome. So love to hear from you on that.
And thank you so much for being here today, Rhonda. I know we had a little bit of a late start, but I do want to make sure that I give you the opportunity to, touch base on some of the update and announcement around the Brooks Village development, a really exciting opportunity for King County, kind of exemplifying a lot of practices to move forward with. So if you want to give us just a quick update on that, and then I think we'll take some of our questions and continue to work together offline.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask Kathleen to help me with this update because she's a lot more familiar with it than I am. But what I can tell you from the county side is that because the comp plan is being considered, because the zoning plans are in flux, it's important that there's certainty in terms of what codes projects are going to be held to. And so the Brooks Village project is moving toward trying to get a demonstration project designation so that the codes that are in place now, the codes that they've known for years, are the codes that they can develop to and work with. So that's a legislative process that we work with our council staff and then the rest of the council on getting that designation for the project. Kathleen, what else should we talk about Brooks Village?
Thanks, Rhonda, and we're so grateful for the partnership of your office and you in particular helping us move this forward. We're really excited. A couple of different things that have developed. In addition to the guidance that we're getting on the establishing the demonstration project, after almost 2 years, we finally have signed a contract for the pre-development funding for the project. And we invite you to help us migrate away from the term Brooks Village to Skyway Skyway Home Ownership and Green Space Project. We are not going to be calling this development Brooks Village. It's a useful shorthand for many people. You know what we're talking about, but we're trying to move away from that. And we also just had a really exciting interagency meeting where 30 different people from stormwater management, permitting, all phases of King County, some city of Seattle folks joined for a briefing on the project of the scope and vision of doing both permanently affordable homeownership as well as restoring the green space and the wetlands. It was so exciting to see so many people interested in and showing up to share their expertise, and we're going to build on that momentum going into the fall. So lots of good things finally moving ahead now that we have the money and site access to do so.
So excited to hear that update and to see a project coming to fruition that has had so much, on the ground community input and visioning and support from all of its partners. So great thanks to Homestead, Skyway Coalition, everyone who has been involved, and excited to hear that happy news. And Rhonda, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. We do welcome you to please stay for the rest of the meeting as a listener if you would like. We do have our Sustaining Existing Homeowners team as part of BHI coming up, and they may have many aspects of what they're working on that could be of interest to you. We understand if you can't, we will record this, and so certainly you can review it later, not to put you on the spot, but just wanted to let you know if you do have the availability, you are more than welcome to be with us.
I plan to be here for the whole time, so I will stay. Thank you.
All right. And now we're going to move on. We are running a little bit behind schedule, but we have a bit of a buffer at the end, so I think we're going to be good. But we're going to hear a few minutes right now from Gregory Davis, the Managing Strategist at Rainier Beach Action Coalition and our BHI core team member. Gregory, take it away.
Thank you very much. And I got to say, to start, it's excited to be with you all. And I'm hoping that I can present in such a way that my excitement is contagious and that you catch it also. Let me check back in with Bambi because I do know you gave me host abilities, but I have not yet queued up my deck to be able to function well. There you go. Well,
That work for you? There you go.
that's excellent, excellent. What I hear about you from people is true. You are on it all the time. Okay, so again, excited to be with you, and definitely want to thank you all for your efforts and the work that you're doing in leading this work. I got to tell you, I'm on the core team, and we are required to go to national convenings with other cities who are doing work, who are doing a Black Home Initiative in their regions: Miami, DC, Los Angeles, Chicago. And Seattle and the region here, Puget Sound region, is the envy of the nation. There are things that you've been able to accomplish that these other cities just right now, unfortunately, could not even fathom. So you just got to hold that and value that, and know that you're doing some national level work that's critical to address this matter. Now, you saw the data by Sochi, so you know the data yourself, and you know the data yourself. So the fact is, to accomplish something like a network model, to accomplish something like this, we need a network model. We need a deep and far-reaching strategy to overcome the practices, the regulations, the laws that have been put in place to limit Black folks from owning homes. So one of the things that we had to do that many of you were able to join in on, I'm sure, is to create these 7 focus areas. Marketing outreach is critical. Post purchase counseling, important. Purchase support tools, credit and lending, housing production, policies and practices sustaining existing owners are all important in this framework in order to be able to accomplish our vision. And in order to be able to do that, we needed a certain structure to be able to support that. And here's the model that we created. So the dark blue is what we will call the supply side. So that's the folks who want to be able to get into homes. And we had to create these work groups on the supply side in order to kind of break loose the opportunity. The light blue is what we would call the demand side. The supply side, I'm sorry. Let me back up. I think I called the dark blue the supply side. That's actually the demand side, folks who want homes. The light blue is the supply side. These are the folks who are developing homes. And the green is enabling the environment. That's actually where your work is as a network, is to support enabling the environment. So I think our interest today was to want to resurface these teams, these work groups that are happening, to let you know that there's a lot of work going on in this ecosystem, in this network, to leverage the work that you're doing. And the fact that there are many people working across many teams to accomplish this shared priority. And you're welcome to join those teams. Now, we want you to be mindful of your capacity, and whoever you are that needs to be involved in your kind of extending yourself in this way. But we want to just make it known that there are other opportunities to support the shared initiative. And so this is basically a list of the BHI teams that you actually saw on that graphic to reflect the framework. So it's just another way to kind of present it. We're going to be hearing particularly from the group that is supporting sustaining home buyers. And for those of you who are interested in participating in any of these other groups, Bambi is going to send out a contact information with the video link to this meeting. And then you'll be able to reach out to the leads on those teams. There'll be emails there for you to be able to connect. So just allowing you to kind of be involved in a deeper way, seeing other work that's happening to make this shared priority a reality. And that's 1,500 new low to moderate income Black home buyers by 2028. So again, thank you for your work. Thank you for the time you've been able to give. And yeah, thanks for being on this call. More to come, more to come. So now let me just bring in the representatives from the Sustaining Existing Homeowners project team, and we'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction, Gregory, and for that reminder. And then we will be hearing today from Leon Garnett, Joy Hunt, and Amanda Sahali of the BHI Sustaining Existing Homeowners team. Take it away.
Have I shared my screen? Okay, great. This is Joy Hunt with the Sustaining Existing Homeowners project team. I'm going to be joined by Leanna and Amanda, and I'm just really grateful to be here today. And I see lots of other folks from our team on the call. I see Anita's here, and Miss Ruby, and Emily, and other folks. So we're well represented, and you know, just look forward to sharing what we've been up to with this group of people, and also hearing your input. Let's see, next slide. Oops. Okay. All right, so what is the BHI Sustaining Existing Homeowners project team? So we are dedicated to keeping families in home ownership and promoting the intergenerational transfer of wealth. And so historically, people have talked about foreclosure prevention as the way to keep people in their homes, and foreclosure prevention is so important. It's, you know, definitely a key part of our work. And also, we think that home repair programs are important to keeping people in their home, and utility assistance. And we're going to talk to you today about property taxes. We think that estate planning and in support with heirs issues are important to keeping people in their homes and families in their homes through generations. Land capitalization and subdivision, the opportunity to build an ADU on your land. And then social supports, you know, like there are places that have been really gentrified. The Central District is a prime example where community and social supports might be important to keeping a family in their home. So we use the language of preventing homeowner displacement in addition to preventing foreclosure, because we think there's all kinds of different components to keeping a household in their homes through generations. So that's the frame of what we're up to. And who are we? This is just a slide that shares some of the groups that regularly send folks to our meetings. And there's also, you know, lots of community members that come to our meetings as well. So everybody is welcome. This is kind of a sampling of the organizations that are involved. And it's an open tent, so anybody's welcome to come. Please email me or my wonderful co-chair, Dina Geeson, and we'd be happy to get you connected or just talk with you about your ideas. You know, however you want to. In BHI, we use the language about weaving. We'd love to weave with you and whatever that looks like. So please do reach out. What have we been up to? So we've been meeting for a year at this point. And our first couple meetings were just building relationships and trust. We also spent some time doing a literature review. So we want to build on work that's already happened, not start from scratch. Wanawari did an amazing report through their Case 21 program called Seattle is Not Affordable, which was qualitative interviews with Black homeowners about the displacement pressures they feel. We also looked at the 2021 BHI strategies and tactics work and a 2019 thesis called Keep Your Habitat, which is an excellent read. I wish I had written a thesis that good when I was a graduate student. I did not. And you know, folks will share, Anita and others will share that our priority issues list is always going to evolve and keep changing. It's a collaborative process. To get to the list that we have now, we did a Jamboard session where we used this thing called Google Jamboard, and we sort of collaborated remotely. We threw all of our ideas in the Jamboard, and people just kept adding stuff. And then we got together in person in January of this year at the Habitat office in Renton and did an in-person facilitated engagement technique called a World Cafe, where we sort of collaborated to identify like priority issues to work on for this year, knowing that list will always be a work in process. So then I attempted to write that up and bring it back to the group, got feedback, did that again, got feedback. So, you know, we're just sort of continuing to be collaborative on our issue identification list. And most recently, we've broken into subcommittees so that we can really focus on some of our key priority issues. And that's just been great. Our project team at our last meeting had 39 people. So we are a big group. And so, you know, we're just blessed that we've been able to get to the point of breaking into subcommittees to do some really issue specific work. We're excited to be able to share that. So what types of issues are we tracking? And then this is not an exhaustive list and it's not a fixed list. It's always going to be growing and changing. But I wanted to share a flavor of the issues that we are talking about. And the first three issues that are highlighted in bold are ones where we have subcommittees. And so those are the issues that we're going to focus on today. And Rhonda, the first issue is the one that I was hoping you would stay on to talk with us about. So we're definitely talking about property taxes, both exemption, utilization, and systems change. Amanda has been leading some amazing work preparing families for the intergenerational transfer of homes. Leon's going to talk about resource ambassador work. It's amazing work and very much related to home repair. We're also interested in best practices for funders of home repair programs. It turns out that all jurisdictions don't administer their home repair dollars the same. And we think that we are becoming aware of some better practices. Anita's really led us in helping to identify that in high cost areas, we really need home repair resources for folks over 80% AMI. And frankly, there's neighborhoods in Seattle where a good chunk of folks that are Black homeowners that haven't been displaced are current or former public employees who might be just above that 80% threshold. And, that's a need for our group. ADU and land development financing options for families with reverse mortgages. We have some families in our project team that are dealing with reverse mortgages actively right now on their family homes. So that's something that's just very present with us. Expiration of half funds. And then we don't know, but want to learn more about mandatory Medicaid estate recovery. That issue keeps kind of surfacing in different ways for us as well. So that's the flavor, a sample of the flavor of issues that we're working on. And I'm going to talk about property taxes. Then I'll turn it over to Amanda to talk about the intergenerational transfer of homes. And Leon will talk about resource ambassador issues. So is there a bar? Can I move this bar? Sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. On property taxes, when we first started talking about this issue, people used to say, well, yeah, property taxes are an issue, but don't we have a good exemption program? And we do, there is a senior exemption program, also for veterans and folks with disabilities. We have met with Assessor Wilson twice to learn more, and he, is a partner in this work and has shared with us his estimate at our last meeting that he thinks that 35 to 40% of households that are eligible for the senior exemption in King County are receiving it. That means 65 to 65% of households that are eligible for the senior exemption in King County are not receiving it. So the city demographer has done some work with us, the city Office of Planning and Community Development, to look at the number of households that appear per their census data to qualify for the exemption per their age and their income. And we got the number 86,500 homeowner households in King County. So that means that we think if you just play that out on the back of an envelope, that there are more than 50,000 homeowner households in King County that are eligible for the existing senior exemption, but might not be receiving it, which is a lot of households. And we have similar data on the universe of households that might be eligible for the exemption in Pierce County, but we don't know the number of households, the percent of households that are getting the exemption. And before I keep going to our recommendations, I will just stop and say, we've had a great partner in John Wilson, the King County assessor, to help us get some of these numbers and meet with us. And as a voter education, nonpartisan voter education statement, the Pierce County assessor treasurer is up for re-election. This is up for election this November. So that's just something that folks should know about, that that is an election that we are tracking as a project team. Okay, next slide. So this gets us to our property tax recommendations and a request. We're going to work with the King County and the new Pierce County assessor. We want to pilot an automatic enrollment system or whatever forms of system automation we can for the existing tax exemption program to get more of those 50,000 households enrolled in the program. And that's a huge ask. We are currently in the process of sending a letter to the King County assessor to map out next steps for what that can look like. And there might be budget impacts for that. So we might need some money to pilot that enrollment as well. We keep coming back to this conversation about expanding who is eligible for the existing exemption program. So really, should it be any homeowner that's holding onto their home in King County or has a home in Pierce County and is below 80% AMI? Should it be descendants of legacy homeowners in former redlined areas? Should it be people that have been in their home for a certain amount of time? You know, what are the options? One thing that we've identified as a team is that families are vulnerable to homeownership loss. When like a grandma that owns a home maybe passes away and is passing the home on to descendants, and those folks wouldn't qualify for the senior exemption. So that's a time when families are vulnerable. And then last, we are seeking technical expertise to help us determine if there should be exceptions or changes to the highest and best use assessment valuation method. So a family in a formerly redline area that owns a single family home, that home gets upzoned, it's now assessed based on the upzone value. So if it could now be, because it was upzoned, a large apartment building, it's assessed accordingly. And we think that's been a driver of displacement in the Central District. And Manawari has issued a public letter that calls for that to be examined as well. So we don't have a specific recommendation on that yet, but we are definitely, if anyone is an expert on taxes on this call, we really want to talk with you and work with you because we're just interested in learning more about this issue. And this might be something that you hear from us again. We are still in the formulation stage, but we want to partner if this is an issue that you know about or that's interesting to you. So that's some of our work on taxes, and I'll turn it over to Amanda to talk about the intergenerational transfer of homes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amanda Licorice Sahali, also Joyce colleague at the City of Seattle Office of Housing. And so I have the pleasure to help lead the Preparing Families for Intergenerational Transfer of Homes group. Our group is a combination of groups that came together because a lot of the issues sort of overlapped. And so our intention, our objective is to empower Black homeowner families for intergenerational wealth and transfer. So we're thinking about this in some ways that are, policy related. Some of them are just our curiosities. And then really we want to be able to support families, especially our elders, to have those conversations about what is happening with the status of their property in order to prevent future complications. And we find that, the Black families are very vulnerable to some issues. And so one of the goals is to assist our families in navigating things like heirs property, which is basically the confusion of, someone passing away and not having, real structures in place, reverse mortgages. How do you know if someone has them? What do you do if you would like to inherit the home? What could happen? Planning for your wills, estates, finding out if there's other liens on a home. There is a group, the NARAB, it's the Black Realtor Association. They have a program called What to Do with Big Mama's House. We see that as a good opportunity to bring that forward. It's a national program. We're hoping that we can have more conversations so that we can bring it more locally. And really, it's just about what to do, like how to have that conversation with your family. Ideally, we want to provide legal coaching and counseling to strengthen the homeownership stability. And so we're not really sure where that means is funding wise, where that could take us. But we know that families need either a trusted source. So even if it's not actual support, a lot of families have spent hundreds, thousands of dollars even, and they don't have a will or they don't have their estate plan because there's confusion. And so we want to make sure that we have some trusted partners who can provide families some support to the end of getting that planning done. So right now, our current strategy is that we're researching other program models, like I mentioned, the Big Mama's House, and we want to just look around to see what can effectively help prepare those families for the transfer of their home. And we want to focus on understanding how these models can address family preparation. There are some other issues that I didn't mention, but like foreclosure, long-term care. Joy mentioned Medicaid estate recovery, the kinds of things that can complicate whether or not a family even wants to stay in their home and whether it makes sense to do so. So our strategy is to convene organizations and other thought leaders to continue to identify and discuss what gaps there are in service in this area, and then to collaborate to develop those solutions together. And so we're hoping that we can, at the convening, draft some descriptions of real goals that we want to move forward to share with our public and private funders. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leon Garnett, and I am with the Central Area Collaborative. We are a group that's focused on economic development in the Central District. And I'm working with the Resources Ambassadors Subcommittee. Our subcommittee is charged with identifying sustainable funding for Black-led organizations to help Black families participate in services such as housing repair and state planning, utility discount programs, and et cetera. During our World Cafe earlier this year that Joy mentioned, our network, our Sustaining Existing Homeowners Network identified several barriers that limit participation for home repair for Black families. So one was awareness. People don't know about the programs. They may not think the programs are for them. They don't know if they're eligible to participate. Another issue has been trust. Folks are reluctant to give out personal information. They're distrustful of programs that they haven't heard of before. They're not sure how programs may affect their other benefits or services, and they're scared that they may end up owing money because of these services. Another barrier was accessibility. People don't know who to contact all the time, where to go. Difficult enrollment processes can be difficult, and then there can be some difficulty navigating systems, especially when trying to coordinate two different services from different agencies. So we settled on this idea of resource ambassadors as a way to address the barriers. And so resource ambassadors can work with folks one-on-one to help them understand the programs, eligibility requirements, and access resources. The resource ambassadors can guide and direct people to the right contacts within organizations, the right organizations, and they may act as a first point of contact for people even seeking services. They can advocate for people who have applied for services but may not have received the resources they were eligible for or needed. And the resource ambassadors can engage and educate groups of people who may need to know about these services. And they also can report back to the network to say what's working and not working in real time so that we may be able to work with our network partners to make adjustments. So our group is looking at how to bring this project to life. What do we need to do to get the resource ambassadors working and helping folks? We're looking at a few different strategies. One is developing a homeowners retention resource list to share within BHI. This resource list would outline services and programs available, eligibility, everything that someone would need to know to start an application process. And Joy's been working on this for a while and has made good progress. The second strategy that we're working on is drafting a program description to share with local leaders and funders to get long-term funding for resource ambassadors. Our work group is working directly with community to get feedback to ensure that the programs meet community needs and priorities, and that the community has a say in what our resource ambassador program should look like. The next strategy we're working on is identifying gaps in available resources. And really, are there better ways to coordinate these programs that are supposed to be working together to help people maintain their homes? So as Joy mentioned earlier, different jurisdictions can have different eligibility, different timings that programs are available, different income levels. So we know that, it's going to be really hard to coordinate all that. But I think, just being able to have the conversation to see if we can might help solve some issues or at least get us going in the right direction. And the last strategy we're looking at is identifying public sector home repair programs that are underutilized and just making sure that we can get the word out and people know that they're available, people know how to apply, and that we are successful in connecting homeowners with these programs that are available to help them. We are looking for ways to keep this work going. Unfortunately, some of the groups that are working on this subgroup right now, their funding ends in 2024 and others end in 2025. So we are looking for ways to keep our work going so that we can actually stand this Resource Ambassadors program up and have it funded long-term. That's it. Any questions for myself or Amanda or Joy?
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and pop in here because we're just almost at the very end of our time together. I will be sure that the slideshow goes out to the entire group so that they can follow up. And thank you, Amanda, Leon, and Joy, for sharing with us what you are doing on that team. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, you know, there are a lot of policy actions beginning to bubble up out of this team. And so, you know, if this is of interest to you and you are finding something that's resonating with you, definitely will get you connected. And we want to see some of those actions turning into something on the framework. But that, you know, requires us to find those champions and to make sure that they have the ability to support that. So very exciting to see this very active team here today. And then just again, reiterating how large this network truly is and how dedicated all of the individuals are who are doing every aspect. So thank you for joining us. We are towards the very, very end here. If you have a very quick, as in 30 to 90-second announcement that is a good of the group announcement you would like to share, please do. If you can't get that happening, then definitely send it to me and I will send it along. I have put in the chat here that the Washington Future Fund Baby Bonds Roundtable is happening tomorrow, and you are all welcome to join. It should be a really interesting conversation. Of course, Washington Future Fund has been on our homeownership policy framework for the last 2 years, and this is kind of a relaunch of that effort with an interesting discussion with Dr. Derek Hamilton of the New School in New York City. Anyone else want to unmute and share some good for the group announcements? Ooh, King County's hiring. Thank you, Michelle. You get a chance to work with Michelle. That'd be amazing.
It is a TLT position, but I believe it is a year and it is in affordable home ownership. So if you know anybody, please check it out and or pass it along.
It looks like we have some other hiring looking around. Of course, this is a great room for that. I will also remind us that, you know, right now we have an active action in sending a message to defend the Jumpstart spending plan for City of Seattle. Make sure that you see that in the digest when it comes out. And if you can take that 30 seconds, make sure you're sending your voice out. There is also an organizational level letter that is going to be a sign-on letter that we'll be passing around. So have a look out for that. Again, it's an interesting year. Lots of budget scenarios happening all across the different levels of government, but we're wanting to make sure that our shared priority to increase and sustain Black homeownership is making its way into the conversation. And we will continue to elbow our way into those spaces, and happy to have support from excellent champions like Councilmember Zahalai, and looking forward to future work. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have an amazing rest of the day. I promise, they say the sun is supposed to come out. Those clouds are supposed to burn off. It is supposed to look like August. I really need that to happen. So I hope that it will happen for all of us. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and we will see you next month.